The horizon burned crimson as Sarah Ironwood staggered across the Nevada desert, her once white dress stained with soot and desperation. Behind her, smoke still billowed from what had been her family's homestead outside Tonopah, now nothing but charred remains against the fading daylight of 1876. Her bare feet were bleeding, her water canteen empty, and her will nearly broken when she spotted the silhouette of a rider approaching through the shimmering heat. Beckett Zimmerman had been tracking wild mustangs when he spotted what appeared to be a ghost wandering the scrubland. Reining in his stallion, he squinted against the setting sun, his weathered hand pulling his hat lower to shield his eyes. The figure stumbled, fell to her knees, then struggled upright again with a determination that struck him to his core. "Miss," he called out, approaching slowly so as not to frighten her. "Are you in need of assistance?" Sarah's parched throat could barely form words. "Fire," she managed. "Everything. Gone." Beckett dismounted in one fluid motion, his spurs jingling softly as his boots hit the ground. He offered her his canteen, which she accepted with trembling hands. "I'm Beckett Zimmerman. I ranch about 10 miles north of here," he said, his voice gentle despite its natural roughness. "What's your name?" "Sarah Ironwood," she whispered after drinking. "Our farm. Raiders came. They took what they wanted and burned the rest." Beckett surveyed the distant smoke, his jaw tightening. "Your family?" "My father died last winter. It was just me." A sob escaped her cracked lips. "Everything he built." Without hesitation, Beckett removed his duster coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Come home," he said softly, his blue eyes holding hers. "The ashes are behind you." Something in his words, the quiet confidence in them, reached through Sarah's despair. She nodded once, allowing him to help her onto his horse before he mounted behind her. As they rode away from the setting sun, Sarah leaned against the stranger's chest, exhaustion claiming her. For the first time since the raiders had appeared at her door, she felt the faintest glimmer of safety. The Zimmerman ranch materialized from the darkness like an apparition. First the faint glow of lanterns, then the solid shape of a sturdy two-story house with a wide porch. A barn stood nearby, along with several smaller outbuildings and corrals holding horses that nickered softly at their approach. "Mrs. Crane?" "Caldwell," Beckett called as they neared the house. "We have a visitor in need." The door swung open, spilling warm light onto the porch. A round-faced woman in her 50s appeared, her gray hair tucked beneath a nightcap. "Lord have mercy," she gasped, taking in Sarah's disheveled appearance. "Bring her in, quickly now." Inside, the housekeeper bustled about, ordering hot water and clean clothes, while Beckett explained what little he knew about the situation. "Raiders, you say?" Mrs. Caldwell clucked her tongue. "Third farm this month. Sheriff Porter isn't worth his salt if you ask me." Sarah was led to a bedroom that smelled of lavender and clean linen. After a hot bath that stung her cuts but soothed her soul, she found herself in a borrowed nightgown, sitting at the kitchen table while Mrs. Caldwell placed a bowl of stew before her. "Eat," the woman instructed. "Then rest. Tomorrow's problems can wait for tomorrow." Beckett nodded from his place by the doorway. "You're safe here, Miss Ironwood. We'll sort everything out when you've had time to recover." Sarah managed a weak smile. "I don't know how to thank you, Mr. Zimmerman." "Beckett," he corrected. "And there's no need for thanks. Anyone would have done the same." But as Sarah looked at his kind face, weathered by sun and hardship yet somehow gentle, she knew that wasn't true. Not everyone would open their home to a stranger covered in ash and desperation. That night, in a bed softer than any she'd known, Sarah wept silently for all she had lost. But beneath her grief, a seed of something new had been planted, a fragile hope that perhaps the end of one life could become the beginning of another. Morning arrived with the scent of coffee and bacon. Sarah dressed in clothes Mrs. Caldwell had altered overnight, a simple blue dress that had belonged to Beckett's late mother. When she ventured downstairs, she found him at the table studying a map. "Good morning," she said softly. Beckett looked up, his expression warming. "Miss Ironwood, how are you feeling?" "Better," she admitted, though the word seemed inadequate. "Though I'm afraid I've imposed on your hospitality." "Nonsense," Mrs. Caldwell interrupted, placing a plate before her. "This house has been too empty since Mr. Zimmerman passed. A young woman's presence is most welcome." Over breakfast, Beckett explained his plan to ride into Tonopah to inform Sheriff Porter about the raid. "I should come with you," Sarah said. "It was my home after all." Beckett considered her, noting the determination in her eyes despite her ordeal. "If you're feeling up to it," he agreed, "we'll take the wagon instead of riding horseback." The town of Tonopah, nestled in the heart of Nevada mining country, had grown considerably since silver had been discovered nearby. What had once been little more than a watering hole now boasted wooden sidewalks, a hotel, several saloons, and businesses catering to miners and ranchers alike. As they rode down the main street, Sarah felt the curious stares of townspeople. News traveled fast, and already there were whispers about the Ironwood farm burning. Beckett helped her down from the wagon, his hand lingering supportively at her elbow. Sheriff Porter's office was a small building with a jail attached. The man himself sat with his boots propped on his desk, toothpick between his teeth, seemingly unbothered by the reports of violence. "Ain't much I can do, Miss Ironwood," he drawled after hearing her account. "These raiders move fast, and I ain't got the men to chase 'em across the territory." Beckett's voice was low but firm. "This is the third farm hit this month, Porter. Are you suggesting we all just wait our turn?" The sheriff removed the toothpick and pointed it at Beckett. "Now listen here, Zimmerman. I know you fancy yourself some kind of lone protector since you came back from the war, but this ain't your business." "I'm making it my business," Beckett replied calmly. Sarah watched the exchange with growing understanding. There was history here, and tension that went beyond the current situation. Outside the sheriff's office, Beckett's shoulders remained rigid with anger. "I apologize for that. Porter and I have differences of opinion." "About more than just law enforcement, I gather," Sarah observed. A ghost of a smile crossed Beckett's face. "You're perceptive, Miss Ironwood. Porter was sweet on my sister before she married and moved to California. He's never forgiven me for encouraging her to leave." They walked to the general store where Mr. Haversham, the proprietor, greeted Sarah with genuine sympathy. "Terrible business, this," he said, shaking his head. "First the Reynolds place, then the Hendersons, now yours. Folks are scared." "The sheriff doesn't seem concerned," Sarah noted. "Porter's in the pocket of the mining company," Haversham muttered, leaning closer. "They want the small farms bought out to expand their operations. These raiders seem mighty selective about which properties they target." Beckett's eyes narrowed. "You're suggesting these aren't random attacks?" Haversham shrugged. "I'm just noticing patterns is all." When they left the store with supplies to replace some of Sarah's lost belongings, the information hung between them like storm clouds. "Do you think he's right?" Sarah asked as they loaded the wagon. "That someone wants the farmland?" Beckett helped her onto the seat before climbing up himself. "It makes a certain kind of sense. Nevada's changing. Cattle barons, mining interests, they're all grabbing for land while they can." "My father loved that land," Sarah said quietly. "He believed it would sustain generations of Ironwoods." Beckett's hand covered hers briefly. "I'm sorry, Sarah. No one should lose their heritage that way." It was the first time he'd used her given name, and something in his tone made her look up to meet his eyes. The connection between them sparked like static electricity, brief but unmistakable. The ride back to the Zimmerman ranch was quieter, both lost in their own thoughts. As they approached, Sarah found herself studying the property with new eyes. The house was larger than her family's had been, but it had the same feeling of having been built with love and attention to detail. The corrals held fine horses. Beckett clearly had a talent for breeding good stock, and the pastures stretched toward distant hills. "It's beautiful," she said honestly. "My father started with nothing," Beckett replied. "Built it all over 30 years. I've tried to honor his work since he passed." "You've succeeded," Sarah told him. That evening, after dinner, Beckett took Sarah to the barn where he showed her a new foal born just days before, a delicate creature with a white blaze down its nose. "Life continues," he said softly as they watched the foal nurse. "Even after the worst happens." Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. "I don't know what to do now," she admitted. The farm was everything. Beckett turned to face her fully. "You have options, Sarah. The hotel in town would give you work. The schoolteacher was talking about needing an assistant. Or," he hesitated. "Or?" she prompted. "You could stay here. Mrs. Caldwell isn't getting any younger, and she could use help managing the house. It would give you time to decide your next steps." The offer stunned her. "I couldn't impose—" "It's not an imposition," he interrupted gently. "This place was meant for a family. Right now, it's just me rattling around in it." Sarah searched his face for any sign of ulterior motive but found only sincere concern. "Why are you doing this for me, Beckett? You don't even know me." His expression softened. "I know what it's like to lose everything. When I came back from the war, I was broken. My father gave me purpose again. Perhaps this is my chance to pass that kindness forward." The honesty in his voice touched something deep within her. "Thank you," she whispered. "I accept. At least until I find my feet again." Spring in Nevada brought wildflowers to the high desert and new routines to Sarah's life. Each morning, she rose before dawn to help Mrs. Caldwell prepare breakfast for Beckett and the ranch hands. The days filled with household tasks, gardening, and learning the rhythms of ranch life. Beckett taught her to ride properly, not side saddle as her father had insisted, but astride like a true Westerner. Their lessons often ended in laughter as Sarah mastered the skills that came so naturally to him. "You're a natural," he told her one afternoon as they rested their horses beside a creek that cut through the property. "Another month and you'll be helping with the roundup." Sarah laughed. "I'm not sure the cattle would be impressed with my abilities." "You underestimate yourself," Beckett said, his eyes lingering on her face longer than necessary. "You're stronger than you know." Such moments between them grew more frequent, a shared glance over the dinner table, hands touching as they passed tools in the garden, conversations that stretched late into the evening on the front porch. Neither acknowledged the growing attraction, though Mrs. Caldwell's knowing smiles suggested it wasn't as secret as they believed. In town, however, rumors began to circulate about the young woman living at the Zimmerman ranch. When Sarah visited the general store one afternoon, she overheard whispers that made her cheeks burn. "Living in sin, if you ask me," one woman muttered to another. No proper lady would stay unchaperoned with a bachelor, no matter how tragic her circumstances. "Mrs. Caldwell is there," her companion pointed out. "A housekeeper isn't the same as family. It's scandalous." Sarah held her head high as she completed her purchases, but the words followed her home like persistent flies. That evening, she sat alone on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. Beckett found her there, her expression troubled. "Something happened in town," he guessed, settling beside her. Sarah sighed. "People talk. I shouldn't let it bother me." "Ah," Beckett nodded. "The joys of small-town life. They're questioning your reputation for staying here." "It's not just that," Sarah admitted. I'm not sure what I am anymore. Not a farmer's daughter, not a proper lady with prospects. Just existing in this in-between place." Beckett was quiet for a long moment. "Do you want to leave? I could arrange something in Sacramento where my sister lives." "No," she said quickly, surprising herself with her vehemence. No, I don't want to leave. Their eyes met in the fading light, and Beckett reached for her hand. I'm glad, he said simply. Later that week, a letter arrived from the bank in Tonopah. Sarah's hands trembled as she read it. They're offering to buy my father's land, she told Beckett when he returned from working with the horses. A generous settlement, they call it, though it's less than half what the property is worth. Beckett took the letter, his expression darkening as he read. Silver Creek Mining Company, he noted, just as Haversham suspected. They're buying up all the burned properties. It's blood money, Sarah said fiercely. Paying me for land they stole through violence. You don't have to accept, Beckett reminded her. The land is useless to me now, she sighed. Everything's gone, the house, the barn, the equipment. I could never rebuild alone. You're not alone, Beckett said, his voice low and intense. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning neither was ready to articulate. Sarah looked away first, her heart pounding. I'll think about it, she said. That night, unable to sleep, Sarah slipped outside to walk beneath the stars. The vastness of the Nevada sky always brought her comfort. The stars so bright they seemed close enough to touch. She found herself at the corral where Beckett's favorite stallion, Thunder, nickered softly in greeting. You're up late. Beckett's voice came from the shadows, startling her. I couldn't sleep, she admitted. Too many thoughts. He moved to stand beside her at the fence. About the bank's offer? About everything. My father's dream. This new life I never expected. She turned to face him. About you. Even in the darkness, she could sense his smile. I've had a few thoughts about you as well, Sarah Ironwood. Have you? She whispered. Instead of answering, Beckett reached out to brush a strand of hair from her face. The touch was gentle, almost reverent. From the moment I found you in the desert, something changed in me, he admitted. I'd been existing, not living. Going through motions without purpose. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. And now? Now I wake each morning eager to see your face at breakfast. I find myself inventing reasons to be near you. I think about your smile when I should be focusing on ranch business. His honesty broke something loose inside her. I never expected to feel this way again, Sarah confessed. After losing everything, I thought my heart would stay as barren as those ashes. But you? She reached up to touch his face. You've made it grow again. Beckett's hands came to rest at her waist, drawing her closer. May I kiss you, Sarah? Her answer was to rise on tiptoes, bringing her lips to his in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened with months of unspoken longing. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. I love you, Beckett said simply. I don't expect anything in return. I just needed you to know. Sarah's heart soared. I love you too, she whispered against his lips before kissing him again. They stood together under the stars, planning futures neither had imagined possible just months before. When dawn touched the eastern horizon, they walked back to the house hand in hand, no longer pretending their hearts weren't completely entwined. At breakfast, Mrs. Caldwell took one look at their glowing faces and harumphed with satisfaction. About time, she declared, serving extra biscuits as if in celebration. The town of Tonopah buzzed with new excitement when Sarah and Beckett rode in together the following day. They made no secret of their affection, Beckett's hand often finding the small of her back as they walked, Sarah's smile radiant whenever she looked at him. Their first stop was the bank, where Sarah firmly rejected the offer for her father's land. But Miss Ironwood, the banker sputtered, be reasonable. The property is worthless now. Not to me, she replied calmly, and not to the Silver Creek Mining Company, apparently, or they wouldn't be so eager to acquire it. Next, they visited Reverend Holliday at the small church. The elderly man beamed when they explained the purpose of their visit. A June wedding would be lovely, he agreed. I've always thought you needed a good woman in your life, Beckett. The best woman, Beckett corrected, squeezing Sarah's hand. Their final stop was Sheriff Porter's office, where Beckett demanded a proper investigation into the farm raids. I have proof that Silver Creek Mining has been hiring men to intimidate farmers into selling, Beckett announced, placing a letter on the desk. One of their former employees had an attack of conscience. He's willing to testify. The sheriff's face drained of color. Now, see here, Zimmerman. No, you see here, Porter, Beckett interrupted. Either you do your job and arrest the people responsible, or I'll take this to the federal marshal in Carson City. Your choice. Porter glared but eventually nodded. I'll look into it. As they left town, Sarah couldn't contain her smile. You're quite intimidating when you want to be, Mr. Zimmerman. Beckett laughed. Only when necessary, Miss Ironwood. Soon to be Mrs. Zimmerman, if I have anything to say about it. The weeks leading to their wedding passed in a blur of preparations. News came that Silver Creek Mining's director had been arrested along with Sheriff Porter for conspiracy and corruption. A new sheriff was appointed, a former cavalry officer with a reputation for honesty. On their wedding day, the Zimmerman ranch was transformed with wildflowers and ribbons. Neighbors from miles around gathered to celebrate, the community coming together to embrace Sarah as one of their own. As she stood before Reverend Holiday in her new wedding dress, Sarah caught Beckett's eye and saw all the love in the world reflected there. When they spoke their vows, promises to love and cherish through all of life's joys and sorrows, she knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the Reverend declared. You may kiss your bride. Beckett's kiss was a promise, a beginning, a homecoming all at once. The cheers of their guests faded as they lost themselves in each other for a precious moment. Later, during the celebration, Beckett led Sarah away from the crowd to a quiet spot beneath an old cottonwood tree. I have something for you, he said, pulling a small package from his pocket. Inside, Sarah found a deed her father's land, now registered jointly in both their names. How? She gasped. The new sheriff found evidence that the mining company never legally acquired it, Beckett explained. It's still ours now. Tears filled Sarah's eyes. What will we do with it? Whatever you want, Beckett said. We could rebuild, or plant it as pasture for the horses, or leave it wild as a memorial to your father. He took her hands in his. All that matters is that it stays in the family, for our children someday, and their children after them. Our children, Sarah repeated, joy blooming in her heart at the thought. I like the sound of that. Beckett kissed her again, then rested his forehead against hers. When I found you that day, walking away from the ashes of your old life, I never imagined you'd become my whole world. You gave me hope when I had none, Sarah replied. You said, come home, the ashes are behind you. You couldn't have known you were speaking about your own heart becoming my home. They rejoined their wedding celebration, dancing beneath lantern light as stars appeared overhead. The future stretched before them like the vast Nevada sky, full of possibilities, challenges, and most of all, love that had emerged from the ashes of tragedy to bloom stronger than either could have imagined. In the years that followed, the Zimmerman Ranch prospered. Sarah gave birth to their first son the following spring, a strong boy they named James after her father. 2 years later, a daughter joined their family, followed by twin boys 3 years after that. The burned farm was never rebuilt as a home, but Beckett and Sarah planted an orchard there in memory of her parents. Each spring, the apple and cherry blossoms transformed the once devastated land into a place of beauty and renewal. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Beckett brought Sarah back to the spot where he'd found her walking away from the fire. A small stone marker now stood there, commemorating not what was lost, but what was found, a love that had risen from destruction to create something more beautiful than either could have imagined alone. No regrets? Beckett asked, his arm around her waist as they watched their children playing nearby. Sarah leaned into her husband's embrace, her heart full. Not one, she assured him. Every step that brought me to you was worth it, even the painful ones. Even the fire? He asked softly. Even that, she confirmed. Because from those ashes, we built this life together. And it's more beautiful than any dream I could have had. As the sun set over the Nevada desert, painting the landscape in golds and crimsons so different from the destructive fire of years past, Sarah and Beckett Zimmerman stood surrounded by the family they'd created, living proof that even after the darkest moments, love could guide the way home.